So here's our course schema that defines the shape of course documents in our mongoDB database. Now we need to compile this into a model. What is a model? Well, earlier in the course, I talked about the concept of classes and objects. So as an example, I told you that we can have a class called human and we can have an object like John. So an object is an instance of a class. A class is just a blueprint, but an object is an instance of that blueprint. Now, in this application, we want to have a class called course, and then we should be able to create instances of that class, like a node course. And then we can save that node course to our database. So, to create a class like course, we need to compile this schema into a model. So, this is how we do this. This mongoose object that we have has a method called model that takes two arguments. The first argument is the singular name of the collection that this model is for. So in our mongoDB database, we want to have a collection called courses, right? So here's the singular name, course. The second argument is the schema that defines the shape of documents in this collection. So that is course schema. Now with this, we get a course class in our application. So we can set this to a constant called course. And note that here I'm using Pascal naming convention. So the first letter of course is uppercase. That means this is a class. It's not an object. Now we can create an object based on this class. So let's create a course object. And here I'm using camel case notation because the first letter of the first word, in this case course, is lowercase. So we use camel case to name our objects and Pascal case to name our classes. So this course, we set this to a new course. And in this constructor function, we pass an object to initialize our course object. So let's set the properties of this course. I'm going to set the name to Node.js course. Set the author to Mosh. Set the tags to an array of 2 strings. So we can have node and let's say backend. Now this is one interesting thing about Mongo or NoSQL databases in general. You can see that a document in mongoDB can be a complex object. So here, this tags property is an array of strings. We don't have something like that in a relational databases. In other words, a row in a relational database has simple attributes. If you want to model this structure in a relational database, you need 3 tables: courses, tags, and an intermediary table called course tags. Because here we have a many-to-many relationship between courses and tags. In MongoDB or a NoSQL database in general, we don't have this structure. We don't have to define these tables. We don't have to script them. We simply create our objects and store them in a database. That's why we call them schema-less. They don't have schema. So here's our tags property. Now, the other property we have is date. But earlier, I defined this to have a default value. So I'm not going to set this here. And the last property is published. I'm going to set this to true. So let's quickly recap. Once we have a schema, we need to compile that into a model, which gives us a class. Next, we can create an object based on that class, and this object maps to a document in a MongoDB database. Next, I'm going to show you how to save this document in our database.